Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about this huge firestorm, right? Which honestly, let's start to recraft language. Okay, so I want to tell you exactly what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to talk about this continued, very dramatic conflict that is in the center of Dungeons and Dragons right now. There's conflict, major conflict. Like this is deep. Like I've never seen conflict at this level in the Dungeons and Dragons in the Dungeons and Dragons space like this. It is truly shocking. Okay, and what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about prescience. I want to talk about prophecy and prescience in context to all this Dungeons and Dragons conflict. And you're like, wow, that's kind of weird. You're not wrong. There's a lot here. Let's get to it, and I appreciate your patience. Thank you for kind of going with me on this journey to the point. All right. Okay, so first of all, let's just talk about this conflict. It was the DND OGL 1.1 leak firestorm. That's done. That's done and dusted. Okay, we're beyond it, right? And now, where we are at is we're at the 2023 spring, okay, D&D trust break, okay? There is broken trust. There is bidirectional broken trust, okay? It is the 2023 spring D&D trust break, right? And we are seeing a fundamental break, a crack in the ice, right? And it is a crack in the ice because D&D is holding up a lot of people, right? D&D is not only holding up everybody who loves D&D, everybody who works for D&D, right? Everybody who has hopes based on D&D, and that's a lot of, and guess what? That's not just D&D people anymore. Chris Pine's family is deeply invested in how well D&D does right now, because the movie's coming out, and 100 other people connect to that film who have nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons, right? Are really becoming invested in the future of Dungeons and Dragons, right? But then people who are in the D&D community who absolutely despise D&D and are shouting D&D be gone, and literally wanting D&D to be blown to be burned to ash, and the ashes to be blown away in the momentum of the OGL 1.0 creators, and in the momentum of the OSR, and in the momentum of the new orc partisans, right? Right? They want it gone, right? But they're in the D&D community. Like these OGL 1.0 creators were in there for 20 years, right? And now they're utterly opposed to it. And boy, I mean, look, Ginny D, right? She just did a video and said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was going to plan out my year. What am I going to do now? Right? Just pack it up, be done with Dungeons and Dragons and go do other stuff. That's real, right? And there are hundreds of D&D creators that are like this, or like, a month ago, I was excited about D&D, and now I'm completely, I don't know what to do with D&D. Now, I love D&D when I was 12. I love D&D when I was 22. I love D&D when I was 32. I love D&D when I was 42. I'm 52 now, and my love for D&D has not budged one iota, right? So I see you, Ginny D, but I have a hard time understanding you. And I see you, NerdImmersion, and I see you, Professor Dungeon Master, but frankly, I don't know why your love for D&D was so easily doused, right? It's hard for me to understand that, right? All right, but there is a fundamental break in trust, right? So these let's just call it the anti-D&D party, right? And that is OGL 1.0 creators right now. That is OSR community members. That is the new orc partisans, right? They have all these hopes for the open role-playing game creatives, the orcs, right? They're putting all their hopes on a nonprofit that we don't know, is going to be there yet, and putting all their hopes on Jason Bowman of Pathfinder. Sorry, I'm saying that with I have no faith in that dude. I do not. He has accomplished jack all of nothing, in my opinion, and I cannot believe how many people are purposely putting weight on his shoulders. And I'm like, I don't know where you ever thought you were going to build anything on the back of Jason Bowman. Like it makes no sense to me, right? All right, and okay, so let's get all the way there. All right. So there's this fundamental break in trust, right? And, all right, so we're at this pivotal point. This is a huge pivotal point in the future of Dungeons & Dragons. I need you to understand that. We are at a huge pivotal point in the future of Dungeons & Dragons. There are things that are happening right now that will go into history books. Not a joke, not like quite literal history books, right? If you're not aware, there are already like 5 to 15 very realistically, like footnotes, the whole nine, right? It is real, okay? Here's what I want. Okay, let's get all the way there. There's a break in trust, right? And so the anti-D&D parties are like, we don't trust D&D. This OGL move, we no longer have trust for Dungeons & Dragons, right? And that's harsh, right? And and on the flip side, Hasbro is like, you guys have given us no goodwill. You ate out on our dime for 2 decades, and what did you return? Nothing, right? Like, the reality, you're telling everybody that D&D was always, that we needed your copy energy. And the reality is they don't, right? So, and so D&D is like, oh, and then Dungeons & Dragons is like, wait, did we hear you say D&D be gone? Did you say you do not want Dungeon Masters to even exist? Did we hear you say D&D be gone? Every book needs to go away? You already had people go and take their D&D Beyond books and burn them with the cancel button. I don't know if you understand how subscriptions work, right? If you cancel your subscription and you bought books over there and you bought the $700, like the anti-D&Ds had people burn books on the digital pyre. Do you guys understand that? We're back to the book burnings days, man. This is for realsies, right? Satanic panic then, manic panic now, right? People not stopping to think, do you understand how subscriptions work, right? Those books aren't going to go, you claim, like, everybody who canceled their subscription, I'm like, do you even understand how D&D Beyond works? You claim material, right? Oh, you want to go get Vecna now? Can you get Vecna now? I don't know. I got Vecna, and when I log in, everything I claimed is there. You just cancel your subscription. So when you want to go back and you want to get all that stuff, half the stuff ain't going to be there for you to get, right? You burned digital material, right? Like, we're back. Like the Satanic Panic, Manic in 1983, Manic Panic 2023. Ain't nothing changed but the date. It's the same. Zealots saying, burn your books. Did we learn nothing? Right? It's astounding. All right. So what happens in all this? I'm an evangelical Christian, right? So we understand prophecy. Prophecy in the Bible. Also, I went to a charismatic church for 12 years, and they actually had people literally prophesying, right? Not sure if you've seen that before. I have, right? Okay. Nobody in the D&D scene, right, other than me, as an I've never heard a single person identify as an evangelical in the D&D scene, right? It's extremely rare, right? So I've heard there's some spiritual people. I've heard there's even people who identify as Christians, right? So we can't use prophecy with anything with anybody who's connected to the D&D space right now. None of them are prophetic. But boy, are they prescient. So one of the things is, I'm convinced. People are like, oh, Hasbro, there's a bunch of, I don't know what they're doing. Oh, they know what they're doing. They are definitely playing 3D chess, while the anti-D&D people can barely even understand the agendas they have, right? They have Dungeons & Dragons. That's a 50-year legacy for Gary Gygax, right? They're connecting those worlds dot by dot, strand by strand, bridge by bridge. Do you understand what's happening on Funko Pop, on Lego, and on Magic the Gathering? They've connected D&D worlds to 1,000 different worlds on 3 different brand platforms, right? This has never been done on any product in the world, right? they have very long-range plans for Dungeons & Dragons, and they're heading places, and they're guarding Dungeons & Dragons in a world where the most vicious predator coming for D&D is not the anti-D&D groups, it's the video game groups, right? It's the video game industry, which people are like, oh, Hasbro, how dare you make $1 billion in a year? And I'm like, do you guys understand? Routinely, video games make 20, 30, 40 billion. Like, this industry is putting up dollars, like billions and billions and billions, right? Like, the entire budget of 1 year of what Dungeons & Dragons can make can be made by a factor of 10 for a single game, right, in the video game space, right? And so, I think about the prescience of what's happening, and I look at D&D, and they named it D&D Beyond. They're like, hey, not only do we want to, hey, we know we got Scott Garibay and every other coastal elite locked in with these physical books. They ain't never going anywhere. People are going to tell you they are. They ain't never going anywhere, okay? But we also want to serve people with this digital product, right? And they called it D&D Beyond because I think they knew inside, right? Like, they're being told them, in order for people to understand this, they will need to have a loyalty to Dungeons & Dragons beyond the present moment, right? They're going to have to love D&D in a way that will push them literally beyond persecution, because that's what's happening right now. If you have a D&D Beyond account, people are like, you gotta cancel that, and you can't go see Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and you can't buy new D&D books, right? Like, but the harshest ones is reserved for D&D Beyond. It prompted D&D Be Gone, right? They're like, we don't want D&D to go beyond. We want it to not exist, right? And so people like me, who you will find right on this channel, right? At the beginning, I was like, I don't like D&D Beyond. Go back 3 months, and I was like, oh my gosh, D&D Beyond is very useful, right? And now they're saying, where we're going to need fans who are willing to go beyond their own prejudices, go beyond not understanding what's coming next, and give us trust, right? And so it's a prescient name, right? And then on the anti-D&D side, you see the opposite of prescience. Not planning and agendas, layered agendas, right? And you're saying, oh, agenda's an evil word. No, agenda means they just plan, right? You think the word agenda is evil. You don't understand that if you're protecting a brand at global scale, you need agendas, okay? And so here's the kicker, all right? Let's get all the way there. So Matthew Colville is trying to replace D&D, right? So I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at him. He's doing the best he can, right? But the other thing is, like, Matt, why did it take all this for you to get off your butt and make your own game, right? Can we all admit that all these OGL 1.0 creators were being lazy and they were drifting down the river in the tube? And only when there was a crisis did they actually put on their work boots and get to work, right? So Matthew Colville, he tweets, and I appreciate this. I love Twitter. Okay, like, he tweets, hey, here's my 6 attributes and you could see this tweet right on his page. You can go right there. And he's like, these are all my replacements for Strength, Dex, Con, Int, Cha, Wiz, right? And he's got like Might for Strength, a few other words. And I looked at his list. You know what wasn't on the list? No Wisdom. Wisdom is gone. And I was like, that's the opposite of prescience. As he begins to replace Dungeons and Dragons, he shows this shocking ignorance. There's literally no wisdom. There's no wisdom on the list. He's like, oh, you need to be smart because you got to be able to cast spells, right? And you need to get charisma in there. I'll have some other option for charisma, but I can chuck wisdom. I don't need wisdom. Really, it's almost like it's the anti-D&D group in a nutshell, right? Just pure reaction, pure opinion, no facts, right? And they get a little bit of knowledge, but they ain't got an ounce of wisdom among themselves, right? And Matthew Colville, I really feel like brilliant, has all the knowledge in the world, ain't got an ounce of wisdom, and doesn't understand that when you've built a brand on Dungeons & Dragons, maybe you should support Dungeons & Dragons. And the only way you get to a world where you are crying, where you are, castigating the thing that got, talk about dance with the one who brought you, right? This is him, leaving the one who brought him. And the reality is, the one that he went with, that was the prettiest girl in the room. And I don't think he understands the troll he's leaving with. Or like, we there, man. We are there. We are there. That's my point. Took me a while to get there. I appreciate your patience. And also, I understand that some of these concepts are drifting in and out, right? The gears are moving, man. And we are jumping from gear to gear and trying not to be ground into them. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Thank you for your patience with my content. I'm doing the best I can to cover all this. It's tough. It is tough. And, and I have heroes, NerdImmersion and Dungeon Craft. They do the same thing I do, right? And they did it better. But all it took to douse all their love for D&D was a single legal document. And I'm like, bruh, where you at, man? Where you at? I think you're lost. Oh, that's my opinion, my humble opinion. I'm very eager to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.